we'll do the live thing first. Like, hey everybody, welcome back to the Bigmark podcast. It's me, your host, Bigmark. If you are watching on YouTube, this is as much as you're going to see of me tonight. I did forget to fucking hit record on the camera. So enjoy this episode. You're going to hear the audio only. But thanks so much for watching. Catch you next time. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bigmark podcast. It's me, your host, Bigmark. If it's your first time watching, welcome. If not, welcome back. Like I always say, if you ever want to reach out to the podcast and let us know if you have any ideas for any podcasts, or let us know if you have any critiques or anything, please hit us up on in our DMs at the Bigmark Pod or at the Bigmark Podcast, or on our Instagram or Twitter. If you ever wanted to support the podcast, you can check out our Patreon, patreon.com/thebigmarkpod. There's a couple options there to give your support there. We appreciate all of our fans that have supported the Patreon so far. Thank you so much. Please like and share and rate the podcast if you can, wherever you're listening or watching. If you are watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the video so you know, and subscribe to our channel, I should say, so you know the next time our videos come out, you'll be the first to know. And like I said, tell your friends. If you tell one friend, we can double the podcast overnight. So again, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for taking the time tonight. I'm really excited about tonight's episode. It's kind of one of those episodes where I was thinking tonight, I was getting ready for one. I had this idea that actually came up when I was talking to my last guest, Stacy Perot. Again, thank you so much, Stacy, for coming on. We were talking about it and it happened to come up during the podcast. So stay tuned. That episode will be coming up later. But I was thinking about this episode, kind of just came to me at the last second, but I really am excited about this one again, because it's something that has an interesting place, like kind of in my life, where I've really gone away from it for a while now. And, you know, it seems to be kind of creeping in all around me. All my friends and coworkers, for that matter, seem to be into it, and it is piquing my interest again. And that's cycling, bicycling, riding a bike, 2 wheels, man-powered bicycle. That's kind of what we'll be talking about today. The world of cycling, and it's a deep and cavernous subject for many reasons, but I'm going to kind of keep this a little bit more personal, and just kind of how, like, what my experiences are, and maybe take a little step back and maybe take a broader look at the world of cycling, or at least, you know, things that have happened in some of the big races around the world, or that have involved some famous characters anyway. But, you know, getting into cycling, you know, it kind of you got to start somewhere. And obviously, like a lot of kids, you know, it started when I learned to ride a bike when I was a kid. And obviously, kids like riding bikes. I grew up in a neighborhood in the city where, you know, it wasn't like crazy dangerous to ride your bike, that you couldn't even like go on the roads, you're going to get wiped out. There was like main roads, but luckily there's a lot of like interconnected side streets in the neighborhood I grew up in. So it was pretty easy to safely get around. And it was a pretty ideal form of transportation, you know, as a kid. Obviously, you're riding your bike around, like you get to go kind of wherever your 2 legs can carry you. And as long as you're back in time before the sun goes down or whatever, or I remember having like my watch was like actually like attached to the handlebars of my bike. I didn't wear it around my wrist, just so I knew what time I should be home. And yeah, like pegs on the bike, like growing up, like one of my first bikes was a BMX bike, actually, because that was like super popular, even though I never did like any fucking tricks. But it was good for like riding around the city anyway. And it had pegs on it, you know, for anyone who's listening who has no idea what I'm talking about. They're like these little pegs. They're like these small cylindrical metal pieces that come off the side, like the hub of your bike. So your bike wheel, the middle of it, the hub. I don't know who's listening. Gotta give everyone the benefit of the doubt here. But anyway, there's these little things that, people can stand on, and in the BMX world, they actually use it for tricks and like grinding on surfaces and edges of benches and, places where you would grind your bike, curbs, people's porches, whatever, you know what it is. So that was fun, having that bike and again, riding around. I remember distinctly playing a game of chase with my buddy and his brother, and I think a couple of his buddies that were also like at our elementary school, and then like our friend group, me and my buddy and our other friends, we were all together hanging out. And it was kind of funny. It was one of the rare times that we were all together hanging out. There was kind of like two distinct friend groups in my elementary school, and we were all boys. Like at school, there was no beef, but it was just like these boys kind of hung out a little bit more than the others. And we just all happened to be together one day, and somehow we drummed up a game of chase. And again, the big difference between chase and tag, not much, to be truthfully honest. It's usually one-sided, and the person who loses, there's a distinct chance of pain. There might be some threat of physical or verbal punishment. In our case, we were scared shitless of our buddy's brother. Of my buddy's older brother. He was like 2 years older, and I think we were probably like in grade 5 or 6 at the time. So like a couple extra years, like if they were in grade 8, they might as well have been like seniors in fucking high school to us. So like, and they legit had fucking sticks at one point. They got into like the local high school in our neighborhood. The dumpster outside had all the fucking offcuts and shit, piece of shit wood from like the wood shop. So all like the degenerates at that school, like making swords and fucking old guns and shit, that the teacher said, you got to throw that out. What are you doing? He got a hold of these like in his posse, and they're like for real chasing us. Like we thought if we got caught, we were done. Again, our advantage being we were on bicycles. So I had my one buddy on my pegs, and we were fucking riding around getting after it. And we had to cross one of these said busy streets that I was mentioning that we usually didn't ride around. And I remember riding across it, and we were for sure like we were going to get hit. Like it was pretty close, but I swear buddy like clipped my tire, like the back of my tire, enough that it like left a skid mark on his car. I don't know. I swear I looked back and saw that. That was like in the moment. It wasn't like a memory. But we made it. We made it here today, and I don't know how it really truly ended. I'm sure we got caught eventually, but we were all over God's green in that, like our entire neighborhood. I felt we completely traversed. So again, that was like most of my experience with like riding a bike, and I kind of learned a little bit late. Took me a while, took a few tries, and it just never really clicked. I didn't have a lot of time. I was between my mom's and my dad's, and we only had we were doing other stuff too. I was playing basketball, and like, so I feel like I was like 7 or 8 by the time I learned to ride a bike, which like some kids are learning to ride a bike at like 4 now. I'm pretty sure like they're getting on those weird little 2-wheelers probably like at 2 or 3. So like I was mad late, but like got into it and loved it. And like my pops got really into cycling too. Like I guess it would have been like in his 40s, I guess if I do the math correctly. But anyway, and he really got into like riding mountain bikes. So I also got into riding mountain bikes too, because when we were together, we would go out and ride. And he got me a mountain bike, and I had a mountain bike. I had like a pretty shite one at one point, like especially compared to his. He had like a sweet like light mountain bike. And then yeah, eventually I got like a nice like bike you can like ride in the forest and like not feel like you're like the first mountain bike I ever had was like this Iron Man thing. It was like made of fucking steel. It was like heavy duty. And it was probably like almost as heavy as I was I don't know, so I was a big kid, but it was a heavy ass bike, and it just made it that much harder to like get into the sport. But yeah, my dad got super into it. Like he was doing races and things like that. Like there was there's this one race. I'm pretty sure they still do it today. Actually, I'm not sure if they still do it because like COVID might have killed it or something. But they do this thing called the Paris to Ancaster, which is like Paris, Ontario to Ancaster, Ontario. There's like there's some trails, and you can ride your bike there. Not necessarily anything heavily technical, but it's like a fun ride nonetheless. I remember him doing that, like going to like the signups and like getting all prepared for that. There was this other race called 24 Hours of Adrenaline. Wild race. It was like a relay race that was literally 24 hours, start to finish. And the guys ride through the night and all the way through the morning and finish the next day. And my dad and like I think probably like four other buddies or 5. I don't know what the max. I don't know. I was like, maybe 10. I don't know. I can't remember, to be honest. But he was in the race and it was like pouring rain. We were up in a tent chilling. I was doing fuck all. Again, this was like still in a time where like, I don't know, maybe I had a Game Boy potentially. But like, I guess, you know, kids these days occupy themselves in many a different way. Don't get me wrong. But, you know, I was probably bored as shit. Couldn't do anything. Young kid, whatever, doing his thing. And like, eventually my dad was like, all right, you want to go home? And I was like, yeah, for sure. So like, maybe it was like a good excuse for him to get out of there. But I remember it just being like torrential downpour. And like, they were saying the race, like the route, the trail was like all run out, muddy, crazy. Like at one point there was like a foot of mud. Guys were coming out of the trail like with their bike like completely caked with mud, where they had to like go over to the local lake and like completely submerge it, dunk it. They had like my dad and his buddies had like a tent or like a little tarp scenario set up, and there was like some water pooling and you could kind of like poke it out, and like some guy came over to like say like, hey, can you like rinse me down a little bit? And my dad went to like go poke the tarp to kind of wash it a little bit more. But then the whole thing ended up dunking the guy. And I mean, everyone was soaked. So it was like, fuck, what are you going to do? But like crazy scenario, super, super interesting. I mean, to witness a little bit in that sense where, you know, I mean, too young to kind of really understand what's happening, but like, you know, to see that like high level, pretty intense, athletic event go down. I was able to do a biathlon. Yeah, a biathlon. So like, no, is that? Yeah, I think so. Where I just I just swam and biked. There was no running. So it was like a triathlon, but only 2 parts of it. And I got on a bike and did that thing. So I remember doing that as a kid, like at least like some competitive like riding, I guess. What else? Yeah, like, I mean, again, you know, as a kid, you ride your bike everywhere. There was a cool trail across Hamilton where I could like ride my bike to my dad's, or like me and my buddy would ride our bikes up to my uncle's, and he had like a pool up there. Like in Hamilton, we have this escarpment, and it's like our natural landscape feature. And there's a nice trail that goes up it, so you can like get up our, like we call it the mountain. You can kind of get up there into this whole new world of the mountain and ride your bike up there and do your thing. And again, it's an interesting city. Hamilton is funny that way. Like there's some really good trails and some really good places around, bike lanes and places you can ride your bike, but like the people fucking hate you, man. Like there's something about Hamilton drivers, and I guess it's getting it's a little bit different now because we have so many like new drivers, but historically speaking, it was like kind of dangerous to ride your bike in Hamilton. Hence my story where me and a bunch of kids almost got fucking hit by cars riding across the street. Like, what are you gonna do? And there's this visceral hatred towards cyclists that comes from this really weird place, and I believe in Hamilton it comes from a lot of cyclists in Hamilton, or at least for the longest time, weren't necessarily cyclists for recreation. They were cyclists maybe because out of necessity. Maybe they couldn't drive. Maybe they had their licenses taken away. Maybe their license taken away because they had driving under the influence charges. And it's not great. And sometimes those people take advantage of that and also booze and ride, because what are you going to do? I mean, you can get pulled over on a bike. Don't get me wrong. This is the bicycling episode. This is the Bigmark podcast. We're going to say, hey, if you get fucking booked on your bike drunk, you can go down for drinking and driving. That's a real thing. So be careful out there, folks. But let's be real. How many cops are out there, unless they're also on a bike, pulling you over for being intoxicated, unless you're pulling crazy moves? But again, we're talking about people that ride on their bikes, potentially under the influence, not only of alcohol, but something else, dodging into traffic late at night, not knowing where they're going, not obeying traffic signals and doing such. It gave a really bad rap for Hamiltonian bikers, cyclists, bikers. Well, there's real Hamiltonian bikers, and they don't give a fuck about cyclists either. That's for sure. But again, this is a general pussiness maybe that Hamiltonians just don't appreciate. But again, it's a perfectly fine way of getting around. And again, if you don't mind dodging some cars and being aware, like that's the kind of thing about it. It's not like they're necessarily out to hit you with a pipe, although you never know, it might go the other way if you ask some people. But like, cars just going to drive, they're going to let them drive, and you got to just learn to like move around them. That's just kind of how I learned to grow up. And then just avoid side streets. There's plenty of side streets you can go on. Don't fucking mess with the main roads. And this beautiful rail trail that we have in Hamilton that goes across practically the entire city. It goes into Dundas and it goes to fucking Brantford, for that matter. It's all part of the same trail. It's pretty cool, actually. But that was my kind of, experience growing up. And then that was like for fun. And then if I really wanted to get into it, me and my pops, again, mostly for his training, if you will, or at least his hobby. But like, I remember training for that 24 hours of adrenaline and continuing on riding after. And my stepmom Andrea was really into mountain biking as well. And we'd all go riding. There's actually this beautiful trail. Actually, my buddy Mark used to join us too, but this beautiful trail in Woodstock, Ontario. It's the Woodstock, Ontario Cycling Club. Really cool, super interesting trails. There's like Black Diamond to like pretty easy. So like they kind of rate mountain bike trails like skiing trails, and like Black Diamond is like, expert level, and there's different levels, and they explain that to you. And there's kind of like trick little area too. And there's something called North Shores in the mountain bike world. And it's basically like, dudes riding the trails being like, how can we make this fucking harder? And they essentially build, sometimes up fucking 10 feet off the ground, these like wooden plank little trails, like sometimes not much wider than the fucking wheel of the bike. Like literally they'll just put like a 2x4 and you can just like ride on the 2x4 as far. And like, I wouldn't want to fucking fall off that. I'll tell you that for free. But, again, like it's all at this place too, right? And it's pretty cool. And it was really fun to be exposed to that as a young kid, getting into sports and alternative sports too, right? Like I played football, basketball, little soccer in high school, the big main sports, right? Like everyone loves those. Everyone loves to play those and do what we will in those. But there's so many other cool, fucking awesome sports out there too. And mountain biking obviously kind of like leans into like the more extreme sports as far as that's concerned, because you have like downhill mountain biking and stuff, which I never really got into myself. That heavy duty downhill stuff. I was more like cross country technically. And I actually subscribed to Mountain Bike Action magazine, which was a fucking sweet magazine. Taught me a lot about like bike maintenance, which is a really cool part, and seems to be a funny thing. Like when people get on, apart from cars, a lot of people get into cars too, don't get me wrong, but like people who like tend to have bikes, they like to kind of get into the maintenance of it too, not only because it's cost effective, but like from motorcycles to bicycles. Like there's that book, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, right? And there's that idea that there's something when you're a part of the machine that you're like traveling with, kind of goes back to like when we were riding horses, and just like there's something with like we appreciate the machine and take care of it and it'll take care of us, kind of thing, whatever, right? So that all kind of is encapsulated in cycling in general. But again, I'm more so more so inclined to know about mountain biking and all that stuff, because I never really got into road biking. Again, big kid. I kind of avoided those little fucking skinny bitch ass tires. But again, it's the same thing, same reason why I got into basketball in the first place. Because, you know, my dad was into it. My parents were into it. So like, that was something that I could relate to and they could teach me. Right. Again, road biking is cool because it's a different idea. You're like talking about doing, like when you'd ride mountain bike, 50K would be like pretty significant if you rode like a 50K loop of a trail in the woods, riding up and down, crazy ups, crazy climb scenarios. Like sometimes you're doing like insane climbs, crazy graining gear, completely off the pedals, but like for short bursts, right? But like road biking, 50K is like, you could do that before work. And like, it's kind of one of those things where that's way out of my element. And again, you're going you're just way faster. And it's a little bit more like, to me, a little bit more on the same lines of just like running, where you're just kind of like on a road. Yeah, you get to catch some scenery and dodge some cars a little bit, but like hopefully you're in a place that's like relatively safe or on like a nice paved path that you can get after it and really fucking train. And it just lends itself a little bit more, you know, the bikes in triathlons and in the Olympics are road bikes, right? They're meant for speed. They're built for speed, which is, again, it's just this whole other world, which is super cool, but I'm just not super behind it. In fact, it's like a lot of the people at work are more like road bikers. Like I was saying, like my coworkers are into cycling, but they all tend to be into road biking, which is, again, super cool. But we're actually involved in the Tour de Guelph that's coming up June 25th, 2023. Whenever you're listening to this, Escarpment Labs is heavily involved. If you guys want to reach out and support, hit me up. Check us out. Follow along. Where I work, Escarpment Labs, we make brewer's yeast. We're super cool. Always involved in something in the community. And the Tour de Guelph is for like the General Hospital in Guelph and food banks and things like that. So it all goes to a good cause. And obviously road biking, only other stuff I know is like stuff from like Icarus and that whole shit with like things that happen in the Tour de France and Lance Armstrong and the doping and the blood doping. And it was always interesting. And it was brought up in this great documentary called Bigger, Stronger, Faster. They actually interview Hans Landa, he was one of the, I think he was on the American team, American Express or whatever, American Post, U.S. Mail, whatever the fuck, whatever the team, oh my God, whatever the team that Lance Armstrong was on, I'm pretty sure Hans Landa, whatever, however you want to say it, he was on it too, and he got his medal taken away as well because they accused him of blood doping, but he trained in a way that, yes, that has the same effects as blood doping, but he didn't blood dope. I'm pretty sure that's what the whole story is. And in that Tour de France, I'm pretty sure you could go back to the 23rd. You had to go the person who came in 23rd in the whole fucking race before you found anyone who had nothing to do with doping. So it's pretty rampant in the sport. It's a pretty sad thing. But again, like I said, road biking, and I'm sure would help you as a mountain biker too, but they're probably not testing them, but good for them. Go for it, boys. They're probably testing you too. Sorry, but go for it. You want to increase your blood oxygen carry capacity because it's an aerobic sport. Like I said, it's more like long distance running, right? So being able to have endurance, carry yourself along for long distances is advantageous, and there's 4 different ways you can do that. And obviously, normal training increases your VO2 max, blah, 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 but it doesn't necessarily increase your red blood cells. Now, you want to have more red blood cells because you can carry more oxygen, you can recover a little bit quicker. It's just kind of better for your overall endurance and health when you're pushing yourself to those limits. But there's 4 ways to do such. 2 are illegal, 2 are legal. And depending on how you do it, you're all getting the same fucking effect. So this is the weird, convoluted, which we won't get too far into today, the weird, convoluted ethics of doping in sport is that these 4 ways of increasing your red blood cells, that's all they do. They all increase your fucking red blood cells, but two are illegal. So the legal ways are, one, training at altitude, which some countries just are lucky to have mountains in their country, and they tend to put their Olympic training facilities there, like United States Olympic training facilities in Denver, Colorado. And the other legal way is sleeping in a hyperbaric chamber. So you're sleeping in a chamber that you can like remove some of the oxygen, and your body just naturally produces more red blood cells. Same thing with training at altitude. Just creates more red blood cells to be able to carry more oxygen to your body, because you have less oxygen available to you. So that's your body's natural adaptation, which is fucking cool and amazing that our body does this. The other two ways that are completely illegal is blood doping, aka removing some of your blood, portion of your own blood. So the athlete's blood, you take a liter, let's say, out of yourself, put that in the fridge. Give yourself 120 days. Hopefully you line that 120 days up with right around your competition. And 120 days is about how long the average it takes. Is it 120 days the average length of time it takes for red blood cells to regenerate in the body. So after 120 days, hopefully it's right on your race day, you re-inject that red blood cells, all those blood cells into your body, and you basically have just like your blood plus. You have extra blood, extra red blood cells, and extra oxygen carrying capacity until your body wants to reach equilibrium again and kind of gets rid of some of those extra cells. You poop them out. Anyway, and then the other illegal way is taking EPO, erythropoietin, which is an illegal drug in the sports world. It's obviously a legal drug in the medical world because it helps people with lung issues, emphysema, things like that. Helps your lung carrying capacity, increases your red blood cells. It's just a drug. That's all it does, period. So again, you have all these ways of doing the same thing, but depending on how you did it, you cheated. So that's all I know about road biking. That's all I can say about that. And then ride my bike in London. When I was in London, when I went to school there at Western, shout out. I rode my bike everywhere. That was my vehicle. I didn't have a vehicle in school like a car. I rode my bike everywhere. So that was fucking sweet. Really enjoyed that. It was still my mountain bike. I actually got a nice bike out there. Only rode it on the trail a couple times, but it's a 29er Rocky Mountain, really nice piece. I'm actually going to bust it out. One of the other reasons why I was excited to do this episode, because again, being surrounded by this, Tour de Guelph at work, my buddy Jack Williams, I see him riding his bike all the time on his stories and everything. And I've been ripping these bird scooters around Hamilton too, which are super cool. These electric scooters that we have in Hamilton, which I actually rode in Lisbon too. So it's kind of cool to see them here. But again, just like getting out there, the weather's beautiful, got a garage to keep it, like might as well grab the bike. So I'm going to bring that baby out of storage, get it all tuned up. Hope maybe do some myself. I got to take it to a shop though. It's been too long, but it's like $150. Anyway, it'll be good. Get it all shined up. And again, like I said, bike maintenance is fun. You clean your chain, you put the lube on, you fill the tires, excuse me, you make sure everything's fucking tight, and you get on there and you get riding, and you're going to fall. You're going to crash. It's kind of fun. Just make sure you don't crash too hard. We've all had our mountain bike incidents, my pops included. Actually, one of the times I was riding in London, oh my God, this was crazy. So this is new to London. I'm pretty sure it was maybe my second year. No, actually, I'd been in London for a few years at this point, but I was just moving into a new place, which wasn't far from where I was living at the time, and it was right near campus. Like I knew where I was in London, but I saw that there was like this cool little trail, not little trail, but these cool trails in London. And I guess still at the time I didn't, and like it was funny because I was there the other day. I think I convinced myself that London wasn't as spread out as it was, or at least at the time it didn't occur to me at how fucking spread out London is, but it is spread the fuck out. Because like Hamilton going end to end, I'm pretty sure is like 11K, or like, it's not fucking crazy, 10K. Like it's not like insane amount of distance, but like London seems double that. It felt like it anyway. But I rode that whole distance out to like one edge of town, and then I rode the whole trail, and I fucking bonked on the trail. So that's like when your fucking legs just give the fuck out. You got nothing left. I could barely bend or straighten my legs. I was literally like laying out on the trail, and like people were like riding by being like, "You okay, man?" I was like, "I'm dying, but I'm cool." Had to like call a cab, and like it like took me back, like pounded 50 Gatorades. It was fucking weird, man. It was wild, but I was banged up, and yeah, it was just like I said. I underestimated like how far away I should have gotten a ride out there, did the thing, and rode back, which is a fun thing to do with your bike, right? You throw it in the back of your car. You ride to wherever you want to. You drive to wherever you want to go. Again, this is how I got out to Woodstock and did that. That's what you do. Right? So you don't have to ride your bike to the place, then do a whole fucking 20K loop or whatever the loop of the street was, of the trail was, and then try and ride back. Like, oh my God, what was I doing? But that was tons of fun. People tried to rip my shit off in London. Like, London's crazy for that, bro. Like, your shit will get stolen. Like, fuck. Like, I had my bike chained up like outside the football stadium. Like when I was playing football, I was like, who the fuck's gonna fuck with my shit here? Like, we could come out at any point, but I guess they just look and see us on the field, I guess. Smart from me. Anyway, and those motherfuckers took like the lights off my bike. They couldn't steal the whole bike. I don't know if they tried, but like they just took the lights of my bike. I'm like, you fucking pieces of shit. And I need those lights because I was always riding my bike after practice, which was at night. And then replace them. And this time I put like zip ties all over the motherfucker. Like if you were going to try and take them, you had to remove them. And I don't know why I insisted on leaving them on there. I was just like kind of lazy about it, I guess. But like I just wanted to leave them on. And the motherfucker stole them again. So the guys just ripped them off just for sport, essentially. Which was like, what the fuck? But anyway, I'm looking forward to getting back into riding and like, again, have the space to store the bike now, which I'm really lucky, at least for the next couple of years. And yeah, again, get out there, get riding. I'm excited to do it. I'm excited to hear your stories. I'm excited to hear what everyone's riding, what kind of equipment they're running. I know my buddy Mike Norman is heavy into riding in the whole fam jamly. And again, thank you all so much for listening. I hope if you've never been into riding, this maybe sparks something. Or if you're into riding, let me know if you know any good trails around here. I love Dundas Conservation Area. If you know any other places in Hamilton where riding's cool. Red Hill used to be super sick. Oh my gosh, I remember this was the only time I felt like that, like true sense of like, are we fucking this world up by expanding roads and highways and byways and all this construction? Me and my buddies used to ride Red Hill Valley Conservation Area, had some cool trails here in Hamilton, Ontario. And they were building this new like freeway in Hamilton, this new like kind of highway cutoff. And we kind of knew that it was happening, or like at least there was talks about it and people were like up in arms about it. It went through like some indigenous area and some indigenous land. So it was always a big issue. But I remember it really hitting home because everything went through. They had started construction, and me and my boys were riding. I think it was me, my buddy Mark, and someone else. And we rode, and we almost literally fucking drove right into a fence. Like this fence was just like in the middle of the trail, and we could just see that they were just starting construction on the other side. And it was like, fuck, man, like this sucks. It was almost like that, that one tear goes down the eye. But again, I'm happy to get back into it. Let me know if you know any other places, like I said, around town, or like I said, I'll go to Woodstock. I'll throw the bike in the back. So again, thank you so much for listening. Check us out. Hit up our Patreon, patreon.com/thebigmarkpod. Check out different areas and different ways to support the podcast. Hit us up on our DMs at the Bigmark Pod, at the Bigmark Podcast, on our Twitter or our Instagram for all those ideas about new trails. If you like the podcast, rate it, tell a friend. If you tell one friend, we can double it overnight. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you know when our next videos come out. Again, thank you all so much. Tell all your friends, share all your friends. Get out there and ride dirty. Peace.